What John is saying, and evidence that you're truly born again, is you're trying to find the center of God's will and distance yourself as far as possible from the things that are offensive to God. And he says the way that you do that is you learn to abide. You learn to abide. And at the end of verse 6, I think he gives us the definition of maybe abiding, to walk as Jesus walked. To walk as Jesus walked. He ought to walk as Jesus walked. And how did Jesus walk? Well, chapter 1 says he walked in the light. Chapter 3 says he walked in purity. And all these things should be true. But I think he walked most obviously in a way of abiding with God every moment in life. Now, some of you may have tie clasps or bracelets or bumper stickers that say a term that I think has gotten real popular. It came out of a book that was written over 100 years ago called In His Steps. It's a term that we use today. We even use the initials, WWJD. What would Jesus do? And for many of you, you think that's probably a good rule of thumb for my life. And there are a lot of benefits to that. It is a good idea if you're sitting on the couch to think, well, and watching television, think, well, if Jesus was sitting right here next to me, what would Jesus watch? And maybe that should guide what I should watch at this moment. Or if you're speaking with somebody, to maybe ask, what would Jesus say to this person if Jesus were here? But I think there's limitations to that. When we were living back in Kansas City, I took Shiloh to a batting cage. And he was in there practicing his batting, hitting baseballs. And I watched him for a while. And then I got to straying down a few cages down and seeing this cage that nobody was in. And it was a cage that threw the ball the hardest. And I got to thinking, I wonder how I'd do if I went in that cage. And so I had some quarters left over, and so I went down to that cage, got me a bat. They had bigger bats down there. Stepped inside that cage, and this was 5 years ago when I was still under 40 and thought I had something of any substance. And I stepped in that cage and put the quarter in, and I just waited for that ball. And I was going to whack that ball as hard as you can imagine. And I didn't even see the first one go by. It came by so fast, and I was swinging at every one of those pitches, and I could not even connect with it. By the time I even saw where the ball was, I couldn't get the bat around quick enough. And I nicked one, and I was so excited. But I got to thinking as I was in there, okay, I just need to get the right mindset going here. You know, what would Mark McGwire do if he was right here standing in my place? So I got real excited. I'm going to really hit this one. And that next one came by, and I didn't even get to that one. And I still couldn't hit it. And nobody that was there ever confused me with Mark McGwire, even though in my mind I was saying, what would Mark McGwire do? What would Mark McGwire do? It didn't work because I'm not Mark McGwire. Now, if I would have just handed the bat over to Mark McGwire would have stepped in that cage and stepped in there. He would have been knocking the snot out of that ball. But I wasn't Mark McGwire. And to think that sometimes I can take my life and step out and say, what would Jesus do? Okay, I'm going to live my life all day long doing exactly what Jesus would want to do, and I'd really be stepping out in the flesh. I need to hand my life, just like that bat needs to be handed to a Mark McGwire, I need to hand my life over to Jesus Christ. What would Jesus do if he was here? The fact is, he is here. That's the whole secret. He is here. He wants to take our life and live his resurrection life out through it. And that means we need to surrender our life to him and let him begin to live out what Jesus would do as he is here and as he lives it out through our life. We are to walk as Jesus walked. That's what John says. We are to walk as Jesus walked. How did Jesus walk? I think it'll surprise you if you've never really come to understand it. Jesus walked in a total, unrelenting, unbroken fellowship and dependence upon the activity of the Father who indwelt him. He walked in total surrender to the will of God. That is how we are to walk, not just in things mimicking what he might do if he was just in our situation, but to walk as he walked in total surrendered dependence to God the Father and to the Holy Spirit. The secret of victory over sin and over self is to learn to depend completely on him for all that we need in order to live for him and to serve him. It is a living relationship that allows him to live his life out through us.